last year in our English class, Max and I were in the same class, and our teacher said you can write an essay or you can make a podcast. And so neither of us had ever made a podcast, and we didn't want to write an essay, of course. Like, who wants to write an essay? So Max is like, let's make a podcast. And it sounds like, oh, of course, it would be so much easier. But it was, for me, it was a little scary because I have a stutter, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk in public. But Max said, let's do it.
Hi, so this is Max and a Nudge, and we started a podcast about a year ago, and it's just got us so intrigued with everything and storytelling and interviewing people, and we've learned so much. And here today we have David Hoffman, who is a storyteller and a filmmaker, and we're here to ask him some questions and learn more about his life. And to start off, we just want to know just how much you've learned from filmmaking and from seeing and telling stories from different perspectives.
That's funny, Max. That's like a 50-hour answer. Tell me about your life and how it's affected you and how filmmaking's affected you. And let me think, what can I say to you guys that would matter? Well, when I was in college, are you in college?
No, but we will be next year.
You're in high school?
Yes.
You're two high school seniors?
Yes.
Yikes. Well, when I was in high school, I went to college because everybody did. I was signed up to be a musician. I got a scholarship. And I get there, and there's this thing called radio. And I signed up with the radio station right away. And in radio, you got to ask people questions. And I quickly realized that I was more interested in what the other guy thought than what I thought. And my questions were really based on, I was curious about just about everything. Curious just about everything. And I knew almost nothing. I'd never been anywhere, maybe New England, but I'd never traveled anywhere. I didn't actually talk to any people who worked in corporations. No one I knew worked in a corporation. My father was an artist and my mother was a public speaker and a mom. So I started asking questions, and they were innocent questions, like the ones you're asking, only yours is a big one. And what I found was behind the camera, just me, I could ask any question. I only got punched once in my life, meaning almost everybody accepted. Oh yeah, he's making a movie, a documentary. At that time, remember, nobody had been filmed, certainly not with sync sound. I had a 49-pound camera and a wire to a tape recorder, and I just went in the streets and started asking questions. And I found a fair amount of corporations and television systems like this new sort of documentary thing, man on the street, ordinary people. That was my thing. I don't want any famous people. Sure, I've interviewed plenty, but I wanted ordinary people like me. And it turned into a wonderful lifestyle as the industry has changed from 16 millimeter to videotape to cell phone with tens of millions of creators. It's just opened the opportunities for continuing to ask questions, show people what other people feel, try to understand everybody. And I do have a philosophy. My philosophy is I'm not interested in ripping things down. It's easy, in my view, to be a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker, who makes other people look silly. That's easy. It's hard to find the good in everybody, particularly in a fractured society like we are now. So fractured, but I'm still trying to find the humanity and the individuality of everybody.
Now that you've seen so much and you've interviewed so many people about their stories, do you think
Max,
you have? Yes.
Respond to what I just said with how you and Anush feel about that. So conduct the podcast. So I've just laid out a position. Now you respond to how you feel about that position. Then ask me a question. Don't just worry about the next question. What do you think? Are you like me? Do you find that something, how do you relate as a young high school student now to what I'm saying about 60 years ago?
I feel like a lot of it is about change, how a lot of your videos are like, well, back in the day, we used to sit around, we used to all have dinner together, and then we'd all watch TV. And then, and my family still kind of does that sometimes, but I know a lot of families don't. And especially this year, change was the name of the game, or in 2020. And to be honest with you, I don't like change. And I don't know anyone who does and is speaking the truth. You know, it's like, oh, I'd love to change. No one likes to change. And I think one thing I'm working on is trying to embrace change, but it's not easy.
That is a really good question about a really good subject. Nobody likes change. It's thrilling when it goes your way. It's scary as hell. And the fact of the matter is, some part of our lives, it seems to me, we control. And a lot of part of our lives we don't control. That's the scariest thing of all. How do I deal with that fear? I use it to propel me forward, to try to understand more. I feel if I understand something, I'm not as afraid of it. And that's been true really my whole life. I did a lot of films on the military at a time when the military was being attacked on television a fair amount of the time. And I had people in my family then and now who are in the military, the United States military. And by meeting these people and by hearing their stories, it didn't make me less afraid of war, but it helped me to understand them. And by that, my anxiety went down. So I think your perception about change is a really good one.
You've been behind the camera and you've kind of seen other people's stories and kind of understood them. And you told me that it reduces your anxiety. If you see someone kind of make a mistake in their life when you're behind the camera, do you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't make that mistake? And if you see someone kind of like do something good in their life, you think, oh, let's make a note of that. And I want to maybe do that in my own life. Do you ever think about that? Like, what goes on through your own mind when you're hearing someone else's story?
I have a goal when I pick up the camera and I'm behind it. And that is, I want that other person to express their humanity, their feelings, their kindnesses to the audience. So that's my goal. It's not to understand something for myself, but it's to listen behind the words. What are you really saying? How can I turn that into something good? Now, that is a point of view. Michael Moore doesn't have that point of view. He makes his documentary feature films attacking the other side. That's okay. I'm not knocking him, but that isn't me. I'm not interested in attacking. I'm interested in finding the basic humanity. And I can't tell you how many times I've made a film where at the end of the film, the people I filmed said, you made me look so wonderful. I feel good. I'm proud. So I've changed their lives and I've presented another case for good folk. Not everybody's good folk, but I don't need to film them. And I've been asked to do some films that I've turned down. There's one on smoking cigarettes where a cigarette company hired me. I couldn't do that. I couldn't put my heart behind that. So I'm living my own life, dealing with my own anxieties and challenges. And something new has happened, of course, in YouTube. For the first time, I'm in front of the camera. I'd never been in front of the camera, and I saw no reason to be in front of the camera. I'm behind the camera. Then I went in front of the camera on YouTube and started telling my own stories. And I found that other people, largely of goodwill, wanted to hear more from me. So you might tell me, if you can, honestly, why'd you pick me?
I picked you, or I came across your video because I'm just on YouTube, you know, and you're on YouTube and you see a video that catches your eye. And the one that caught my eye was a life aboard a aircraft carrier.
Probably 3/4 of the men on the ship just said goodbye to their wives, their children, their girlfriends, their mothers. And I will bet you that they've already started a major transformation. As a matter of fact, it started the moment the last line hit the water and we were free from the pier. Major transformation. They haven't forgot about them. They still love them. They still care for them. They'll still write to them. They'll still worry about them. They'll still want to be with them. But now they're in a different environment. They've got to be able to function in this family unit.
I'm going to be in the military next year. And so I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. And so your video caught my eye, but it wasn't just, the title. And usually I watch a video, and then if it's not good, you click off it. But I stayed through the video, and I watched the whole thing, all 42 minutes of it, because the way it was almost like you made me part of, like, in that dining room with the XO and his wife, and the wife asks the XO, if there's going to be any conflict, are you going to fly? And in that moment that the XO, he's going to fly, but he doesn't want to tell his wife that. And you also know the wife she doesn't want to hear that either. And you're right in their dining room in that moment.
I walk into the environment. I initially work hard with the people in front of the camera so they trust the reality of their experience. We're both on the same side of the screen. That's an interesting concept. I am not filming you separated from you. We're both together trying to make a story. You're helping me, I'm helping you, that audiences will understand and relate to. So I'm in that guy's house in the morning, sound man and me, 2-man crew, handheld. He knows me already. She doesn't. And I say, okay, guys, this is a pretty weird situation. He's going away for 6 months. What's it like? Boom. Up comes that scene, which, as you described, has all the subtlety of he's going to fly because he wants to.
Oh, what'll happen if, say, we decide to get into this war?
Well,
what will be your position in that? Will you have to go over and fly?
Our main goal in the crises in Lebanon right now is to protect the peacekeeping force that's there, the Marines that we have ashore.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, you only have 1,200 Marines there.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about hundreds of thousands of the various factions that are fighting in Lebanon. 1,200 Marines can't stop that.
You're avoiding my question.
Yeah, you're probably right. We're not at war there.
Mm-hmm.
We're simply on a peacekeeping mission, a show of presence, and at the same time, to protect the Marines.
You're avoiding my question. Are you going to have to be involved in it?
Well, of course I'll be involved in it. I would want to be.
What will you be doing? Flying?
I'll fly. You can understand that.
Yeah. I think I know you well enough.
Plus, I'm safe.
You're safe.
I promise you if I
Get
go,
your St. Christopher.
I'll promise if I go, I'll come back.
Okay. You best.
I'll do my best to come back.
I'm proud of scenes like that. I have hundreds where I approached it as though we're both working together to capture on film something meaningful. And I say to virtually everyone, including myself, we're not making this for the present. We're making it for the future. We're making this for someone in the future who will see this and understand something they didn't and relate to something they didn't. And the fact is, all these years later, 40 years later, there you are reacting to that moment because you're going to be confronting that going in the military.
I've been watching a lot of your recent videos, and I think what you were just talking about, I think I related to it a lot. And I just watched your video about your hike on Kilimanjaro, which you didn't completely quite finish, but I was really captured by your story, and I found it extremely interesting, and I had no idea where it was going. And your personality was really just capturing. And when you started talking about the people that you were encountering and all of the things, all the nice things you were saying about them and the different culture that you were experiencing, it really related to me because I've been quite a few places in the world, seeing that I'm still a high schooler. How many different parts of society have you learned about just from exploring and traveling the world and creating your own stories just from personal experiences?
Do I care to learn about different cultures? Not really. I'm still trying to figure my own out. The United States is so complicated, it seems to me, because we are the only country in the world attempting to create a multicultural. Nobody else is like that. I mean, there's 99% of Japanese are Japanese. They got the blood of the emperor. That's nothing. We were created by a bunch of different types of people. The Constitution was written with that in mind. And we're still struggling, so struggling with different cultures. And that, for example, I don't like everything about every other culture, including some of the ones in America. I'm not going to say which, but I'm comfortable with some aspects of other cultures in our country and uncomfortable with others. What do I do about that? How do I deal with that? When I went to Sumatra in the oil days, drilling for gas and oil in the Sumatra area of Banda Aceh, Muslim, scary people, boy. I mean, they fought the Japanese and the Japanese didn't beat them in World War II. And very different from me. Can't cross your legs. You don't shake hands. You never look at the women. All kinds of rules. So what can I do with these people? So some people start hanging around me when I'm shooting this story about drilling for oil. That's the story I'm filming.
Let's go ahead and take a shot. Stop, stop, stop.
Let's go!
They're putting little things in the ground and trying to check where the oil might be below the surface. And 1,000 Acehnese are around me. Some have spears. Nobody's got bones in their nose, but they're pretty rough. And one young guy, maybe 20, approaches me and he says, "Can I help you?" through a translator. And I say, "Yeah, we're starving out here in the middle of nowhere and we don't know where to get any food." He says, "I can help." And he runs off. 2 hours later, he comes back and there were four of us on the crew with a sandwich, 4 sandwiches, which are fish, the whole fish, including the head, in 2 pieces of bread with some kind of mustard or mayonnaise. I had a lot of reactions to that. It was very difficult to eat a fish stuck in a piece of bread. But wasn't that kind? Wasn't that trying to cross the line? Wasn't that trying to figure out who I was and who we were, who had entered their space? And that became a big part of my relationship with the Acehnese, who were all around me as I was filming oil guys drilling in Banda Aceh, Sumatra. That intrigues me. That intrigued me, to make the contacts and to see what's good about their cultures. I have prejudices like everybody else. There's some things, for example, this is one I can say. In the New England culture that I come from, a part of it, I was raised in, I spent my early life in New England. There's a part of New England culture by some that says, "Why should you go to college? I didn't go to college. Why should you do good in school? I didn't do good in school. Just get a job. Just go in the military." In other words, putting down those young people who want to grow and get ahead. That's not my culture. My culture is push to succeed. Do better than your parents. How do I deal with that? That is something I feel negatively about. I think it's wrong to put kids down for getting ahead in school and to make fun of them, even by other kids. So that intrigues me. I don't have an answer to this experiment in multiculture that is America. Does that make sense?
I really relate to what you're saying. And I agree with you that everyone has prejudices, no matter how accepting one can say they are about all these different cultures. There's just so many cultures and no one has experienced all of them. And no matter how accepting you say you can be, everyone has prejudices. And the only way you can change these prejudices or realize them yourself is by experiencing them firsthand. So you telling stories and filmmaking in different parts of the world in places that you might not be comfortable with, that's seeing it firsthand. And that reminds me of one of the videos you made interviewing, I forget what his name was, but he was a journalist and that you looked up to when you were younger. And he talked about the fear that he went through when he was telling stories and documenting things that he was uncomfortable with, like places in the Civil War when he had to deal with that kind of stuff.
you know danger, fear from a very early age. Is that affecting you?
I don't think that the fear inhibited me. I think that I just learned to incorporate it in my life. It was part of life. I didn't grow up as an American with the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean on one side and all the enemies of the world until Russia came along with intercontinental missiles. There was no enemy that could touch us except Pearl Harbor, right? But when I grew up in Europe, in Germany, Hitler is arising. In Spain, in the Civil War, I'm a kid, so I'm not caught up in the adult world, but I live in a world where there is fear. So fear is part of my life. And as a reporter, I've been afraid. I've been afraid for my life. I tell you, if any reporter is worth his salt and he's covered anything, and I've covered wars and I've covered civil rights protests, I've covered the Soviet Union, I've dealt with dissidents, I've dealt with the KGB. Anybody who tells you that they have not been afraid is either not being honest or they got ice water in their veins.
I want to ask you the same question that you asked him. So how does that fear affect your life, and how has it affected your storytelling?
That is a damn good question. Fear. Now, there are some people that I've interviewed that I've gotten to know who don't have fear. I mean, Jimmy Doolittle, the great World War II aviator who I interviewed when he was in his late 80s and I was a young filmmaker, he did not know fear.
A lot of people today don't realize what fairs meant in the small towns and of America. And one of the things that would happen that everybody loved was to have somebody get out on a wing and stand on their hands and so forth. Of course, on that kind of business, Doolittle was right at home because he wasn't happy unless he was risking something.
Without a doubt, the most daring man in the whole aviation world, falling more than 2 miles.
Getting out of dangerous situations alive was Jimmy Doolittle's racing trademark.
When I was coming in to land with a student and another plane flew across in front of me and took my landing gear off. Unfortunately, my prop took his head off. So I had a student and we came in and crash landed with no landing gear, nobody hurt. And I got a considerable amount of criticism because I took the student right up again in another plane. And about half the people said that's the wrong thing to do, and the other half the people went along with me and said it was the right thing to do and get it out of his mind as quickly as possible by having him think of other things. If the wings came off, as they did occasionally, there's no time to be frightened, there's no time to be thrilled, there's no time to do anything except the things that you have to do damn fast to survive. They humorously called me the master of the calculated risk because I calculated each risk in order to determine what it was and minimize the likelihood of destruction.
Your best laid plans sometimes went awry, did they not? Yes, quite frequently. But how many? After you've given it your best, after you've given it a good think and done your very best, if it goes awry, well, you still have a certain amount of satisfaction. How many airplanes you figure you busted up in your life?
I've saved my life 3 times by jumping in a chute. I've landed wrecked airplanes 3 times and got bunged up, but not badly.
He'd get up in his fighter plane. He'd see the guy off in the distance, and the fear didn't drive him. The engine would fail, and he knows he's going to crash, and he thinks out, how am I going to crash? Where am I going to land with? He doesn't freak. I do. I freak at first. If I see an accident, for a few seconds, I can't even function. And I have fears, and those fears affect me. But to give in to that fear, most of the time, shames me. In other words, I look at myself and I don't respect it. So I fight the fear. And by fighting the fear, I've overcome many. They're still there lurking in the background. I never was a great traveler. I didn't stutter like Anush, but things like that, peculiarities of my speech, I won't let fear stop me.
So I told you about my stutter, and that's just one of the things that is so scary to me. I sometimes have trouble saying my own name, which is tough. You know, you go introduce yourself, and my name is and they're like, "You forgot your own name?" No, I didn't. Of course, you didn't forget your own name, and it's scary because I love to talk to people. It's like I feel like I know I'm not a religious person, but I feel like if there is some God, boy, does he have a sense of humor, because he is a little boy that loves to talk, but he just can't say his own name, and you know, for better or for worse, I think it's honestly for better, because I think sometimes I think, oh, you know, how successful would I be, or how like how much of a different person could I be if only I didn't stutter, right? And you think, well, actually, I can still be that person. And so I'll give you an example. I visited the Naval Academy this past Friday, and they said because of COVID, only like the kid who got in can go. Like the parents are not allowed to go. So you can imagine I was really nervous. First time on a plane by myself, and so I flew down to Baltimore. And now, you know, in this day and age, a lot of things are electronic, so you don't have to really say your name that often. So I got through the airport, got to the Uber, didn't have to say my name. I was like, you know, I was like, and I got down to Annapolis, and it's a beautiful town. My first time there, it's looking at all the buildings, all the red brick roads, just all the colors, all the sailboats in the harbor. And I sit down at this cafe right across from the gate at the Naval Academy. And this boy from Texas walks down the road, and he says, "Hello, my name is," and he introduces himself to me. And at that moment, I have to face my fear. There's no choice I have. And I say, "My name is Anuj," but it doesn't come out like that. It comes out, "My name is Anuj." I finally get it out. And I was like, you know, okay, I did it. I did it once. And that whole day, I was introducing myself to people. "My name is Anuj. My name is Anuj." And it was scary the whole time. So for me, I looked at something, I say, that scares me. Like that, I can never see myself doing that. And then I say, let's go do it, you know? And one of those things is this podcast. Like, it scares me to like talk in class, but here I am talking to random people that I've never met you, David. And here I am talking to you. And I've never met all these other people we've interviewed. First time talking to them on the podcast. And I am so nervous before I talk to you, before I talk to anyone. But once we start talking and we realize that, you know, it's just a lot of fun to learn from each other, talk to each other, the fear goes away. And, you know, then I realized that the fear won't ever stop me. And so I just think that it's important to learn early that if you're scared to do something, go do it, and you won't regret it.
I think that's terrific, what you guys have said about yourselves, and the way you're thinking is really impressive. And I'm glad to talk with you because of that way. Now, there is one thing you haven't mentioned, but among your goals, sort of hopes for the future, and that is money. I mean, when I grew up in below the middle class, and we didn't have any money. So money was a motivator. Having a job that paid, which so many Americans are struggling with. My God, 40% of Americans, kids don't go to bed fully fed. Yuck. So many people are living paycheck to paycheck. What is it, 40%? Paycheck to paycheck. They don't know if they have enough money to pay. That's not what's supposed to be happening here in America. And that's very disturbing to me. You guys are searching for something you're going to want to do. And that's a really healthy, it seems to me, way to look at work. I was searching for a way to make a living that I could do without torturing myself. Why? Almost everybody in my world went to work in a corporation. And 30 years later or 40 years later, you retired. What the hell is retirement? I've never retired. I've never worked in a corporation. And therefore, I don't have any 401k. I make my living these days from YouTube and from the people who hire me because of YouTube. And all my life, just when I was worried about money, something popped up that was a possibility to make money somehow, some ways connected to what I do, but I've published 17 books. I've done records, CDs, and LPs. I've been an agent. I've helped other people. I've worked for clients who wanted me to film, including their family stories. I'm always finding something to do. So I'm impressed. And I wish I had had the opportunity to think like you guys are thinking about what you're going to do next.
I think that's a very important issue that you bring up, the issue about money, because it's in the back of the mind of everyone. I mean, there's very, very few lucky people in the world that never have to worry about money. But me and Anuj, we are very privileged to live in a wealthy town like the town that we live in, Acton, Massachusetts. And I think it's very important to recognize that you are privileged and appreciate all of the things that you have in your life. But even though I can say that I have all these goals in life and that's what I'm pursuing, I still have to worry about money. So in the back of my mind, the big issues and the big problems that I have to deal with in life are, so I'm going to college. I have to decide whether I want to go to college, if I want to go international, take a gap year, figure stuff out myself. But college is a lot of money. I have to worry about my parents paying for that, loans that I have to take out. What am I going to do after college? I have to pay off those loans. I have to get a job. So
a lot of people ask me, how do you find what you're supposed to do in life when you're your age? How do you find what's right for you? And I used to say, passion, go where your passion is. If your passion is X. But you know what? A lot of people, including my daughter, didn't have any passion. There was no specific thing that drew them. Like, let's say you're a fine artist, you paint. Well, painting, that's a passion. I paint. That's all I want to do is paint. Or all I want to do is design cars. Or all I want to do is be a chef. A lot of people don't have that. So then I went to, what are you curious about? Curiosity is a fascinating thing. Fortunately, in my life, for me, I'm curious about almost everything, including myself, including my world. So starting with me, I'm just curious as hell. And that curiosity drives me into different places. So if you're watching this video, or even you two guys, think about what you're curious about, what you spend extra time on, what you go on and look for on the internet when nobody's watching and you got a little time. And, if it's only gaming and porn, that's kind of difficult. Those are professions. Certainly gaming, X number of people go into it and do very well, but very few of the people who play become game designers.
Max and I were just talking about this before we joined the Zoom call, is that we realized that we're at the stage in our life where we have to make a decision, right, about something. And it's not going to be the last decision we make, because we know that, life's full of hard decisions, but it is the first hard decision we're going to have to make. And when you come to this, you think, oh, if I choose this path, maybe something will happen. And if I go down this path, something else will happen. And I wish there was a way where I could go down both paths and see the end result, and then I could compare them, and then I would know. And of course, everyone would want to do that, right? That would be the ideal situation. And what we found out is that it doesn't really matter what you do, except there's a couple important things. And I want to see if you agree with this or not. So one thing is, of course, you want to enjoy what you do, right? Because then what's the point of doing it? But the second thing is, instead of following your passion, someone told us that instead of following passion, maybe you should just become a passionate person. And so whatever you do, you put your full heart into that. So it doesn't really matter what you do, but as long as you like it, you wanna just pour your soul into that. And so that you don't chase life looking for one passion, but you could have a passion and then you change your mind and you follow something else, but you follow that wholeheartedly. And then the third thing is that when you do come to a point in your life where you have to make a decision, it's that it's so easy to be like, hey, David, these are my two options. You seem like you have a wealth of knowledge. How about you pick your life for me?
There are these very strange markers along the way that help you. And they're called serendipity. And they are how the universe works. How the universe works is it keeps popping up opportunity designed to make things better. The whole thing is working that way, designed to make things better. And if you spot them, you just, there it is, an article all of a sudden in the newspaper or on the web that exactly fits you at that moment. And that serendipity goes on all the time. So I am very open to what's going to happen because of this, or what's going to happen at lunch. Where is the universe going to share with me something I need to have right now? And I think most people miss serendipity. They're concerned about things. And serendipity can be very vague. Like, isn't that funny? Somebody just mentioned a book that seems to be right for me. Something like that. So I wanted to mention that. The other thing is your statement, do your best no matter what you do. That's a signal for living a good life. I'm amazed when I am anywhere in the outside world and someone behaves in a way that's quality. The garbage collector, the person who delivers my Uber Eats, when they step out a little bit ahead of everybody, a little bit personal, isn't that something? They're trying to do a good job. The person who cleans the school, you know what I mean. These people are all around who, whatever they're doing, a sense of personal pride, they want to do it well. So I completely agree with the person who said that, and you, that's an aspect of life for sure. Whatever you're doing, don't be mediocre, because mediocre gets you nowhere and serves no purpose and doesn't feel good. And you don't even learn about yourself standing out, doing it really good. Now, I can't say I've done that all the time, by the way. There are times when I was mediocre and I can still see it in my work. I did that particular one mediocre. I was thinking of something else, had worries, had a better project. I don't like those things, but they're facts of life. You can't do it all the time. But I agree with what that person said that you're articulating.
One of the videos that I watched recently you went over some of the stats about which countries work the most and spend the most time leisurely and which countries spend the most time doing chores. And it opened my eyes to all of these different places around the world and what people do for a living. And I think it's important to mention that, first of all, that US was in the middle of the pack when it came to the overall, how much time they spend working and how much time they spend leisurely, which is with family and with friends and doing things that they like to do. But I think you have to account for the fact that many people in America, maybe not, but maybe they have the same view that Anuj does, that just do things and be passionate about it no matter what you do. So I think even though you're working, but you probably really like what you do. So I think spending time leisurely and spending time working, I think those two sometimes can go in hand.
Interesting point you raise. I think it was Freud who said, if you want to live life and have a good moment, eat a good meal. If you want to live life and have a good life, love your work. In my case, just what you described, work and personal are connected. The personal and the work are connected. It's all one thing. I involve my family in everything that I'm doing. My dad was an artist in New York. He was a painter, and he did book jacket designs and record covers, and he taught at Cooper Union. And I never saw him paint, not once. All the time I'm growing up with him, I never saw him paint. And my sister never saw him paint. And we think that he didn't want us to be artists because he thought you couldn't really make a good living, too hard. Never showed us. Remember, they have this day, go to work with your family, go to work with your working parent. But it's the dumbest damn thing. You don't really get a sense of what they do. And I remember some 6-year-old kid saying to his father, it seems like all you do is talk in meetings. That's as far as he got, because the father never articulated, what do I do that has meaning for someone? Everything has meaning. Everything has meaning? Yeah. The guy who designs the metal casing on the nacelle that sits on the jet engine, that sits on the plane, is taking a kid home for Christmas, right? That's what's really happening. That person's screw is making a huge difference, but he could look at it and say, I just put a screw in a piece of metal, that's all. That's not all. That's never the case. it's always the case that underneath that is a really meaningful to life, yours and the people you're interacting with, supporting, helping. I think that's a piece of wisdom. And when I heard that, because I heard that from one of my mentors, when I could not find a story, and he said to me, David, there's always a story. Just go to the bottom line. What is the real meaning of what that person does who bakes bread? Of what that person does who fixes your car? Of what that person does who helps somebody older who doesn't know aspects of the internet and of the World Wide Web to know how to use it? Huge in every one of those cases. That's my thought about what you said.
Well, one thing that kind of popped into my head was that video about your father, about how he was an artist and about how he was so creative. And creativity is always kind of piqued my creativity. It's the idea of creativity, how it's almost like a form of serendipity that you talked about that. Like, it seems like you're writing the essay and the paper is due the next morning and you don't know what to write. But at 11 o'clock, when your pen hits the paper, bam, all the ideas come to you. What events in your life, like adding to that time your mentor told you to go to the bottom line, what events in your life kind of helped you kind of hone in on your creativity?
There is a factor in what we're talking about that's really difficult. Consciousness, awareness. Not everybody is aware. Most people, say some really good thinkers on this subject, are not aware. And when you ask them, are you aware? Of course I'm aware. What do you mean am I aware? Of course I'm aware. For that second they are. But otherwise, they are not listening to their own inner dialogue. That's hard to do. The inner dialogue can be the ego, as Freud said, chatting away about the future, making you scared, always watching out, always about either the future or the past, never about the present. And when I talk to people, I try to sense their level of awareness. In myself, I go into a state of mind where I find chatter about how I really feel about something. I take a pad, go to a quiet spot, ask myself, and up comes all kinds of stuff I can write down. Sometimes I can't get out of my own way. The ego is blabbering about some worry of the future. And the only way to get rid of it is go in the present. In the present, things are almost always good. I'll tell you a very personal story that I've never shared, but my mom was dying of cancer a long time ago. I asked her what it was like to die, because I was a wise-ass 30-year-old. And I talked to my mother that way, and she talked to me that way. First thing she said was, don't be such a wise-ass. It's going to be happening to you 60 or 70 years from now. Let's hope that it lasts that long. But the other thing she said was, when you go in the present, it's fascinating, David. Dying is fascinating. Well, who says that? Except for a very conscious person, which my mother was. It's very difficult for you young guys to discern even whether you're conscious, to be aware of your own dialogue, which is going on all the time and very tricky, because at any moment it can move towards a fear, an insecurity, an anger, a jealousy. Ick. I don't want that. That's irrelevant. And I can never fix it. When the ego is chattering, it's never fixable. It's always going to be another one, and another one, and another one. Then, oh, you see, that's another one. And then you have moments of luck, but you ignore those. You go to the next worry. So I'm regularly telling the goddamn ego to shut the hell up. I don't want to hear you right now. You know what I mean?
Now, this might be a little off topic, but I think it really relates to what you said about like death. Because when I went to the Naval Academy, I talked to one of the people there, and he's here organizing, these kids to come see the campus. And I sit down and I talk to him, and we talked for a long time. And it's probably one of the greatest conversations I've had. I really enjoyed talking to him, and he told me about some of the people at the Naval Academy that teach. And one of his teachers was a Navy SEAL as well, and was on SEAL Team 6. So that's the most elite Navy SEAL team. And he said that one day, they were under he was deployed and on a deployment, every single day he was being shot at, every single day. And he said, like anyone would be scared, out of their mind. Like no matter who you are, who you think you are, you put yourself in that situation where every single day you are being shot at, and every single day you think you're gonna die. You're scared, just like that's the end of the sentence, scared. And he said that his mentor told him that in order for him to go out there and fight and be in the present and actually, be there for his other Navy SEALs and his brothers, basically, those are your brothers, to be there for them and be in the moment, he had to do something called death meditation, which is like an old tactic that the samurai soldiers, the samurai, warriors in Japan used to do before they went to battle. And I don't really know like exactly how it works, but it's like before you go, you meditate as if you're dead, and I'm not really sure how it works, but then after you're done, you put on your gear, you go out to war, and you've already faced death that day. So that ego, what you're talking about, what's like, all your fears, because you have a lot of fears when people are shooting at you and your life is in danger, all those fears are away and you can really live in the moment.
That's an incredible story. That is just perfect. I will use that in my own life and use it in some other context because it's just so good. Yeah. Now, you guys want something from me here. I've given you the chance to talk to me. A lot of people write me. I don't know exactly why I chose the two of you, but it's serendipity. And I'm hoping something comes out of that. Is this going the way you want? Is this what you want it to be? And really, that's my question.
I don't know if I wanted it to go a certain way, because I think, again, serendipity, I think you just go along with whatever happens and stuff happens. I mean, that's just how it goes. But I think this definitely has gone very much to my liking. And I think whoever does watch this or listens to this, I hope it affects them in a positive way. And I hope they can take the stories that we're telling and the things that we talk about and use them in their own life.
I agree with Max. I think, we have a list of questions on the second computer here to my side, but honestly, I haven't even looked at it. The screen's gone black. And I think I just really enjoy one thing you've taught me. And I think a lot of people struggle with this, especially we're just, we're not very experienced, podcasters. And it's how the podcast, and especially when you interview someone, is you have a couple questions, you have in mind, what you may want to talk about, but you build off each other. And that's something that I think me, Max, and I really want to get better at. And so to just, yeah.
What you're saying is very important. A good podcaster is a communicator. What's communication? It isn't what I say. It's what I say leads to what you say, leads to what I say, leads to what you say. It's a story. Every communication by anybody is a story. It grows on what the other person says. I know that someone is not communicating when they repeat exactly what they said before after what I've said. They haven't heard what I've said. They just go on. There's no advance. We did that in this podcast. Also, lesson number 2, at least in my life as a director, I always share myself. I'm a person. I'm not just a camera. That's crazy. I have feelings. And by sharing myself, the other person, you two guys, share yourselves. And then I share myself. And it goes like that. That's communication. And you got to do that in every podcast from now on. Or your audience won't really stay with it because it doesn't go anywhere. Just a piece of advice from an old storyteller.
David, I think that's very, very important advice. And I think your email, what you said at the beginning when we started this, and your advice that you just gave, I think it's helped a lot. And I think me and Anuj will definitely take all of those things into account. And this conversation or this story that we've told today, I think it's been one of our best, just because, first of all, you're a very easy person to talk to, and you're a very good listener, and you can integrate stories and what other people are saying very well. And I think this has been very good for our podcasting, and it's helped a lot.
Thank you for that. But there's an element of that. I'm easy to talk to. Why am I easy to talk to? Because I listen. What's listening? It's a really strange phenomenon. When you start to talk, I don't think about my next thought. My mind shuts down and I'm just listening. At the moment, I don't care about my prejudices. I don't care about the chatter in my own head. That's gone. I'm into what you're saying. Then I can reflect back on myself. That is a great lesson for everybody because so many people don't listen. They don't hear. They have a message. You say something and they continue the message. You say something and they continue the message. There's no communication. That's useless. I thank you both. I've given you some time and you've given me some of yours. I'm eager to see the results. And I'm going to, if I use this video, we'll see, I'll pass it on to all my people to take a listen to you boys. What do you call the podcast?
It's called Life Could Be a Dream.
I think it is a dream. You probably agree. What is this thing? I mean, latest science says we're all living in some kind of two-dimensional image being created by the universe in some way or other. And it's really like a cosmic story on some computer or something. I mean, what are we living in? Holy moly. It's amazing. Anyway, thank you both and good luck to you.
Let's go ahead and take a shot. Stop.
Let's go! Our work out here is to find oil, and this is the major and most important fuel in the world today. What we've just done is detonate a charge of dynamite to create sound waves.
That's a beautiful reflection there. Yeah, real good.
We are recording the reflections of the shock waves from subsurface rocks. Then we use this data to map the subsurface rocks and find places that would be favorable for finding oil. We're doing it this way because otherwise we would just be punching holes in the dark, and the chances of finding oil under those circumstances are pretty slim.
When we start off on the line, there's nothing. You know, here we have what looks to be a path. This just wasn't here. It's like the jungle. There's still tigers out here. There's elephants.
Or swamp. There's leeches.
Any little cut just stays open.
There is no very good food, and also the water.
Malaria, cholera, typhoid, you name it, it's out here.
Of course, if we had our choice, we would go to an easier topography, but right now we have no choice. We will go any place that we think we can find oil.
Oh, come on, stop now.
Stop some more, stop some more.
You have problems with people moving around. Of course, they have to stop whenever you take a shot, and a lot of these people don't know what we're doing, so they don't really get the overall picture of why we want them to stop.
Let's do!
If it doesn't stop, we can't shoot. Now, get him to stop.
Go! Ready to blast!
Connect his blaster. Let's take a shot now. Okay, send him a tone.
Ready, tone. Anything we find here, our work's going to benefit everybody. At the moment, we're just standing in a pile of mud in the middle of the jungle. In a year, maybe 2 years, there could be a town here. There could be an oil well, everything. This is one of the great things with this job. We really are the explorers, and we think we're doing a really major job. And it's terrifically satisfying as well.